Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Unlimited Terrain Creator version 2.0 tutorial series, the second video in this series out of I don't know how many. I'll just keep making these until I think I've covered everything. We already covered the overview of the new add-on, or the new version rather, and right now in the installation, and we are going to go over the first of the modules in the program, the Base Creator. So, where we left off, we've already installed the program. We've downloaded Blender first of all, installed the program in Blender, and we've got this new Select Scripts tab at the top with a Base Creator button and a Terrain Creator. So the first step is to just go ahead and click on the Base Creator button. This may take a little bit while it's importing everything. It's importing a couple of 3D assets and building the scene. But when you're done, you should see, when it's done, you should see something like this. This scene should look pretty familiar. Side note, I have messed around with making the background and all the black stuff in the background a little more interesting. Maybe make it a little nicer, like an actual, cool 3D background and a cool, background plane here. I don't know if I'll actually add that, but we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'll put it up to a vote. But for right now, I've got at least the visual side of things pretty much the same as the original version. But we've got a lot of other cool stuff. So the previous version, if you remember, it created a couple of different tabs that all handled different things. I've consolidated that all down into 3 tabs. So there's now a Base Creator tab, a Customization tab, and a Finalize tab. So it should be a little more navigable, a little easier to manage. The main tab will be this Base Creator tab, or at least that'll be the one we're starting on. And this is where we'll set up the actual basic design of our base we want to create. So I'll just walk through each of these individual sections up here real quick. So there's an Initialize button that will pretty much reset everything. So it'll wipe away any assets you've got already in here, as well as all the background and the lights and all the other stuff, and it'll reload them. So you shouldn't really need to use that. Once you get finished with a design you like, you can just click the Add Base Terrain button, which we'll cover in a little bit, and that'll erase everything, all the assets you've placed, and start a new base. But if you ever encounter a glitch or a bug or anything like that, which hopefully doesn't happen very often, but if you ever do, you can click that Initialize button and it'll just reset everything. So the next section is this Add-ons button, or Add-ons dropdown, and if you can't see everything in the tab, you can always expand this a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. So this was previously a separate tab in the original version, but I've combined it onto this one to make things a little easier, a little less clicking around. And basically the way this program is organized is all the assets are sort of separated by a theme or an add-on. I kind of use them interchangeably in this and the user guide I sent out, and they're pretty much what they sound like, different genres or themes with different assets, with specific assets in them. So I've got a bunch of these from the original version, so those of you who are pretty familiar with the original version, a lot of these will seem familiar, and I added 3 new ones in the new version that I just sent out. There's a dark sci-fi add-on, which will have a bunch of cyberpunk and interesting sci-fi assets and that sort of thing. There's a cleverly named Fantasy 2 to go along with the original Fantasy add-on, and that'll have pretty much what it sounds like, just more fantasy stuff, good D&D stuff. And then I also added a Lovecraft add-on, which will have a lot of kind of horror assets, a little bit of sci-fi, anything sort of Cthulhu related, if anyone's into that. I know a lot of people are, so hopefully a lot of people like that. So yeah, just a lot of kind of creepy horror stuff, a lot of tentacles and spooky stuff like that. I feel like that's pretty appropriate for Halloween, which is just around the corner. So those are the 3 new add-ons, and basically these are just collections of assets you have saved to the program, and hopefully I'll be sending out more of these soon. We can add to these each time I send out an update, and they're separated in this way so that things don't get a little too confusing with big drop downs full of tons of assets. It's sort of you select a theme and then select the specific asset from that theme that you want to place on your base. Just makes things a little simpler and more organized. So the way you do it is you'll pick one of these themes and then click the import button, and that'll make that theme available throughout the program. So I'm going to import the dark sci-fi theme because that's one of the new ones. So I'm going to show this off. I'll do the fantasy 2 and the Lovecraft theme. So that will make some new assets available. We do have a couple of default themes available. These were just sort of the original assets I added when I first started playing around with this program, when it started out as just a fun hobby project a while ago. So they're sort of basic, not very interesting, I guess, standard themes. And you might find them very useful, but most of the stuff I put more work into is in the actual themes that you import. Those will be the more detailed assets that look a little better, that I put a lot more time into. So those are the ones I'll be using primarily for this demonstration, but there's no reason not to check out the ones in here. There should be some cool stuff in the default assets as well, so feel free to play around with those. But once we've imported the add-ons we want, and feel free to import other ones that I didn't import, but once we've done that, we'll go to this next drop down, which is the shape of your base. So you'll see a number of different options in here, and we're going to cover most of these. Well, we're going to cover all of them, but we're going to cover just the first 5 or so for now. And if you played around with the original version, these should be pretty familiar and pretty self-explanatory. This just sets the shape of the base. You can make a circle, a square, a hexagon, an octagon, or an oval, or a dungeon tile, but we'll cover that in the next video, I think. And you can change the base shape as well. And on the original version, this only went up to 50 millimeters. I've increased that to 100 millimeters, so you can create much larger bases. I think once you get way up high, things start to get a little unreliable, and you'll notice when you first change the size to something much bigger, you'll get kind of a weird shape that doesn't make sense. If that happens, just click the Change Terrain button, and that should fix things. You might have to click it a couple of times if you're making a much larger base until you get something you want, but eventually you should get a shape that you like. So that should work for all of these. If you ever get any weird results in terms of adding a base, at least in this section, the Change Terrain button, just clicking that once or twice should eventually get some good results. And we'll cover that one a little bit more. Basically what that does is it randomizes the terrain a little bit, but just the way the program's set up, sometimes when you change the size right away, or when you change the size on its own, not everything will update perfectly. I won't go into the details, but basically sometimes you'll get some wacky results. All you need to do is click that Change Terrain button. So we can change the shape, like I said. I'll just click the hexagon here, and I won't make something too big. I'll go a little bit lower. And on the size, you can move the slider with your mouse, but basically Blender is calculating what the shape and what the whole base is going to look like each time you move. So it might be faster, depending on the speed of your computer, to just type in a number. So if I just type 25, that'll be a little bit quicker than sliding it, and a little bit more exact as well. So that's something to keep in mind. So the next section is this style button, and what this is basically the style of the siding and I guess bottom of the base. So if you just leave it as topper, it'll just look like this. It'll be pretty much what it sounds like. I'll just make this a little bigger just so we can, just for demonstration purposes. If you just leave that as topper, it'll just be the top of the base. You can change that to straight, which will add sort of a little extra edge down below. You can add sort of a sloped shape around the base that looks kind of like that, and you can also make it kind of a curved design like that. So these should be pretty familiar for anyone that remembers the original version. I'm just going to leave it as sloped for now, and you'll notice in the original version, anything you could click or any slider you could mess with was always visible. I've tried my best to make things a little bit more user-friendly, which in this case means hiding options that aren't available. So if you just have it as topper, you'll see a few options disappear there. If we go back to sloped, you'll notice a few other options down there, such as this add lip option, which adds a little bit of a sort of a bevel on the bottom, which I think just makes things a little bit easier to remove when 3D printing. So there's that. And you can also have this add magnet hole button. And when you click that, there's the size there as well. And you can't see anything now, but if you scroll underneath, I know it's kind of hard to scroll underneath without obstructing the view, but it'll create a little hole down there. So that's what that does. And you can increase the magnet hole size like that, or just set whatever size you want. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, that's pretty much it, or those options. Now we get to the good stuff, and that is the actual theme and base texture you get to add. So this theme will be any of the add-ons that you imported above. So like I said, they have the default themes here already loaded in, but you can click the newly imported one. So I'm going to go with this dark sci-fi one of the new themes. So that will sort of define the theme of the assets you can import. And then the next option for the actual base, this will be the actual base texture that you import. So there's a bunch in here. These will be any sort of base textures associated with that specific theme. So you can just click random selection, and that'll just add a random texture, just like it sounds, just as it sounds. And yeah, or you can pick a specific one. And I know I probably didn't name these very well, and it's kind of hard to guess what it'll look like just based off of a name. So maybe that'll be something I can improve in a future version. But for now, you'll just have to kind of guess off the name and play around until you find something you like. So I think this one looks pretty good. And well, let me see. I'll try something with stones on it. I don't know why. So here's a slightly different base. And you can still go back and update the size. That'll update like that. And as always, you can click that change terrain button. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier as something to fix bugs, but what this really does is it just slightly randomizes the base texture and the base. So it'll sort of shift around and yeah, like I said, randomize that texture on there. So it's a great way of getting a different design, or if you're working on multiple bases of a similar theme, get different variations of that theme, so you don't have to create the same thing over and over again. Yeah, so it's a very handy button. Click that and you can get as many variations and changes as you want. And there is also this base height slider, which I had on the original version, which will change the height. It's not perfect in that it sort of just scales the base up rather than just changing the height on its own. So that might be something to work on in future versions. But if you do feel that your base is too skinny or too fat or whatever, you can adjust that slider and adjust the height a little bit. So that is pretty much all we'll do for right now in terms of adding the basic design of our base. What we're going to do next is go over to the Customize tab up here. And now if you're just adding a pretty basic base, these will be the options that you'll see. There's a Select Assets to Add up here, and there's a drop-down where you can choose different assets. So some of these should look familiar from the original version that I shared. And basically what this first section is little small assets like little plants or debris that you can use to sort of decorate the surface of the base and make it a little bit more interesting. So I'll just click gems for now. And these are also sort of based on theme. So if there are any assets in a theme you've imported, they'll show up. That theme will show up in here, and it will import a specified number of random assets from that theme. So by default, if you add assets by clicking on Add Assets, it'll add them in. And then if you click that again, it'll replace any assets from that theme that are already on the base. Now if you click a different one and uncheck this Replace Existing, that will add those in addition to them. But if you click this replace existing, it'll remove everything and place new assets. So that is something to keep in mind. That's pretty much how those get placed. To go into a little bit more detail, like I said, the replace existing will basically clear the base of any existing assets before adding new ones. If that's unchecked, you'll be able to keep placing assets from different themes and keep adding more assets to the base. This max asset number slider sets the number of assets that gets placed. I have this algorithm drop down from the leftover from the original version. Basically, the program does a bunch of math and calculations to decide where things go on the base, to make sure things aren't one clustered too closely together, and to make sure they appear sort of on the surface rather than above or below it. And it's not really perfect. None of them are this quick. It's just kind of a combination of all the others. Min, if I remember, will sort of default to making sure nothing's floating above the base. So some of them might be a little more sunken, but there shouldn't be anything that is above the base. Really, there won't be too many big differences. You can play around with these a little bit, but basically, this is kind of redundant now because right before the last Kickstarter ended, I added this section below, which will let you, resize and change the location of any of these assets, which may be useful because sometimes they'll come in kind of like this one, where something's sort of sitting off to the side, which you may not like, and it's touching the base, but there's a lot of overhang there, which might not be great for 3D printing. So we have this current asset drop down here, and I know this this naming convention here is not very intuitive or helpful at all. And I'm hoping to fix this in one of the next versions, and I sort of did fix this in the other script in the terrain creator. But for now, you'll probably just have to click through these until you find one that you like, the one you're looking for. So this is going to set the current or active asset on your base, which will show up in red, and then you can edit that one. So let me try and find that one rock on the side real quick, and there we go. So that's that one. And when it shows up in red, that's the one that all these will apply to. So we can use these location sliders to adjust the location of the asset, X and Y and Z to move it down. You can also change the rotation in other directions, and the scale, that sort of thing. So there's a fair amount of customization available here. And like I said, in the next version, I'm going to try and set this up so you can just click on the ones you want to edit. I know that seems very obvious and like it should be very easy, but for reasons that I won't bore you with, it's a little harder in Blender in the way I have this set up. But I know it's doable, so hopefully in the next version that'll be a little bit easier. But for now, you'll have to select the current asset from the drop-down. So that is pretty much all you need to know about placing small assets like that. There is another section here called large assets, and these are basically, they get placed in a sort of similar way, and you can edit them in the same way, but they're basically slightly larger, more detailed assets that have a little more, I guess I'd say detail to them. Things that look a little more interesting, might be a little more prominent on the base. So they get added one at a time. And like before, you can select the theme. So let's see, I'll click this one. I'll click this one. And yeah, so these also get selected by the theme. The theme will be the theme drop down, and then you pick one of these, and then you just click large asset, and that'll add that asset to the base. So as you can see, they're a little bit larger, and you can scale those as well and move them around just like the other one. So that's pretty much it. Let's see, I'll add one random one here. So yeah, things like this, sort of markers and slightly larger assets that might be kind of interesting. And you can rotate them, obviously, and move them around. Maybe this one's too big and too prominent, so I'll scale it down a little bit and just, rotate a little bit so it's a little less prominent, but still looks interesting and still decorates the base. And that's pretty much it. That is really all you need to know about creating a basic base. So we've covered the base creator tab, and we've covered the customize tab. The final tab is this finalize tab. So this is where you'll go to export everything. So as you can see, there's a reset after export checkbox here. Now in the original version, when you exported something, the entire scene would reset, which I know was annoying for some people. And at the time, that was the only way I thought I could set it up. But I did figure out a couple of ways to set things up better. So now you can actually keep working after exporting. You can keep working on the same base, which I think a lot of people will like and will make things a lot more convenient. And yeah, once you're ready to export it, you pretty much just click the export button. So if you click this reset after scene box, it'll reset everything like before. If you leave it unchecked, which I would recommend, after clicking export, everything will remain the same. And if you do finally get done and want to create a new base, I would recommend just going back to the base creator button and clicking that add base train, and that'll reset everything. But that's what'll happen. You'll click the export button, and I mentioned the Blender roaming directory that gets created when you install the add-on. There's a folder in there called Unlimited Terrain Creator, or I think it's just Terrain Creator Exports, which is where everything gets saved. And I have that saved here somewhere. Actually, it looks like I'm only recording the window and not the display, so I might not be able to pull that up. But I will share, I will include a link to the user guide, which covers all of that. But basically, it should be something like, let me see, it should be something like your computer, users, whatever your name is, app data, roaming, and then there's a Blender Foundation file, Blender, and then somewhere in there there's a scripts folder and an add-ons folder, and the one created by this add-on is called UTC_files, and there's a Terrain Creator Exports folder, and that's where that'll get saved. So, like I said, I'll include that in the user guide that I attach in the description of this video, so you guys can look that up and see exactly where that goes. It may be slightly different depending on whether you're on a Mac or a PC. So, if you're a little confused, you can't find it, send me a message or comment on the most recent update, and I will share that. Now, I'll probably share, I'll definitely share another update a little bit after these, the files go out, just to make sure everyone is good to go and everything's working fine. So, yeah, with all this stuff, if you have any questions or if you can't find something, definitely just shoot me a message, and I will get things figured out and walk you through whatever you need. So, aside from that, there are a couple of other options I wanted to go over. They're not as interesting, but you can click this render button as well to render out basically a screenshot of your scene, and that'll get saved to that same folder. I've also added this batch export number, and this is pretty much basically what it does is it creates a specified number of randomized bases based on your current settings. So if I leave it as is with this batch export number set at 5, it would create 5 more hexagonal bases with the same types of assets placed around here, except the base texture would be randomized and the assets would be placed in different places and maybe slightly different assets from the same theme. And I mostly added this before I figured out how to deal with the scene resetting after exporting. It's sort of redundant now because you can just keep working after exporting, but some people might find it useful, so I left it in there for now. I don't know if maybe you just get lazy and want to automatically create 5 or 10 bases really quickly. It'll never be as good as you actually creating them yourself, but it might be useful for some people, so I'm leaving it in for now. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the base create, or at least for the creating a. That is pretty much it, at least when it comes to creating a simple base. So that should cover everything you need to know. And like I said, when you're ready to create a new one, you can just go back and click this this Add Base Train button, and that will reset everything. So that's pretty much it. And the next video will cover. So that's pretty much it. And the next video we'll cover will be this dungeon tile section, which is a little bit different. So we'll go over that a little bit, and I will see you guys in the next video.